All right, I'm recording this the same day as I made the recap, but let's talk about the UFC 300 main event. Alex Pereira and Jamahal Hill headlining UFC 300 per Dana White. And I love the fight, but why are you making it UFC 300? I mean, they fucked up the main event for this card so bad because, as you know, UFC 301 is in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where Alex Pereira is from. So that doesn't really make sense that they're using a Brazilian fighter on a non-Brazilian card when the Brazilian card's a month later. Like, makes no sense. But I love the fight. I absolutely love the fight. This is going to be one of the best fights of all time. There's so many interesting variables going into this matchup and so many things people are going to be fighting through when it comes to predicting this fight, because it is an interesting fight to predict. And I'll be kind of giving over some of the points why I think each fighter will win, and then ultimately give my first take and my first prediction to hearing this take. Let's get started with Alex Pereira. Obviously, Alex Pereira, the light heavyweight champion of the world, just knocked out Yuri Prochazka, and this fight for him should be very favorable, right? Very favorable. Another striker, which he is better than. A grappler would be very, very tough, and now I'll get to Jamahal Hill and his entire skill set a little bit later, but Alex Pereira is an amazing striker, and he has knockout ability, and we've seen that time and time again. I mean, he's getting up there in age, guys. He really is. I think he's, 36 years old, 35, 36 years old. I mean, that's not young, right? I know it's a heavier weight class, and sometimes those numbers don't really, tell the story of when champions are really in their peak, because technically the peaks are different for each weight class. But he is getting up there in age, and he has been knocked out before, and Jamahal Hill has knockout power. And so I'm worried about that for Pereira, is being knocked out in this fight with another guy who has heavy hands, right? If this is Magomed Ankalaev, right, he has heavy hands. But I'd be more scared of him taking you apart for 5 rounds using the wrestling and other things like that. But with Jamahal Hill, he can knock you out. And he has knocked out a lot of people. And he is probably going to be vastly underrated coming into this fight. One, because Alex Pereira has a big fan base, and two, he's coming off an injury. So let's just get into Jamahal Hill a little bit here. Jamahal Hill, former UFC light heavyweight champion, #1 contender, taking on Alex Pereira, going to be doubted by many. He's coming off an Achilles tear. A lot of people don't like him. I am a fan of Jamahal Hill. I really do like Jamahal Hill. I think he's got an interesting fight style. He tries and he talks shit. That's all you need to know. He tries to make himself a personality, which is good, and he talks shit, which I love. I love that. And in this fight, he's coming off an Achilles injury, which is not an injury that is very favorable to people over time. An Achilles injury is a very, very, very difficult injury to recover from. And yes, you may come back and it may not habilitate you right away, but over time, you won't be the same fighter. And I'm worried for Jamahal Hill in that aspect. Is he coming back too soon? Because remember last July, that's when he initially tore his Achilles, and only fast forward, 8 months later, he's fighting. Usually a timetable for that's a year, but I mean, it's Jamahal Hill. I'm sure he knows his body better than I know his body. Pause. But, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he probably knows that his Achilles will be fine then, and he probably wants to fight Alex Pereira really badly, because that's the fight to make really in the UFC light heavyweight division. I'm glad they're doing this fight. It's a great fight. I just don't understand why they can't move it a month back for Rio de Janeiro. I mean, you said you gave Leon 3 different opponents. I would assume Bilal would take that fight, unless Ramadan's during that time. I'm pretty sure it is, which I feel like if I was Bilal, that would make sense not to take it. But Leon Edwards has 3 opponents given to him, and he said yes to all of them, and none of the fights came through. So that's an interesting situation that needs to be talked about. I don't know when he'll return. Hopefully he'll return for that De Janeiro card against Bilal, or whoever they put against in that Rio de Janeiro card better be a Brazilian, because I don't know what they just did. They had one of their biggest Brazilian fighters in names and just didn't put him in Rio de Janeiro. It just doesn't make any sense. But back to the fight itself, though. Two strikers going at it that have similar frames. I think Pereira is just a little bit taller, but Jamahal Hill is pretty big for the 205 division, size-wise. And if he can use his grappling in this match, he will have a huge advantage. And I know we say that about every Pereira opponent. And can they use the grappling? And Jan Blachowicz did, but didn't win the decision, right? I think Jamahal Hill is an interesting case because he is a really good striker that's in his prime, with the grappling. So if he can, be equal with him on the feet and then use the grappling, that's a huge advantage for him. But the injury it's the thing that is very concerning about this fight because it is a real thing, right? This injury is a serious injury. And if you don't know, it's the tendon that's connected to the heel all the way up to your knee, really making you explode off the balls of your feet. And if he can't get as much power in those shots, how bad is he going to hurt Pereira throughout the fight? I'm sure he's going to hurt him. I know he's going to hurt him. But will it labor over time? Will it hurt over time? These are all questions that will be answered by the time the fight happens. But risky fight for both these guys. Both two studs in the light heavyweight division. I think the two of the three best. Magomed's in there too. Yuri's in there. Light heavyweight's alternating hand. Right now, Pereira's got the belt, and I think Jamahal Hill at any moment could get that belt back because I think he is good enough to do that. And Pereira is going to be I think he'll be the favorite coming in this fight. I think he'll probably be like a -150, -160 favorite by the time the fight starts. But by the time the fight closes, he might be -120, -125. Not a big betting favorite because Jamahal Hill was the former champ. He beat his teammate 5 rounds to nothing in a dominating fashion. People forget about that fight. And I know Glover was, just went through a war with Yuri Prochazka, and it was kind of on short notice for both the guys, but the way he dismantled him was crazy. It was really crazy. And if Jamahal Hill can do that to Alex Pereira, I really don't see anyone in the light heavyweight division beating him. I really don't, because if he has the grappling and the knockout power on the feet, he could beat any guy. If he goes out there and demolishes Alex Pereira, you would assume he'd probably be the favorite for the Magomed Ankalaev fight, because if you have, the grappling and the knockout power, I would probably favor you in that fight. And I think he'd just be a more well-rounded Magomed Ankalaev because Jamahal Hill is well-rounded, and he's got a gas tank, and he's got really good striking. His fight IQ is really underrated. It really was. You take a quick look back at that fight with Glover and the shot selection and the way he knew what to throw at the certain time, really showed his understanding for fighting. And now Pereira is no slouch when it comes to fight IQ either. I mean, this guy knows how to pick his shots as well on the feet, which Jamahal Hill probably will be in a striking disadvantage when it comes off to skills alone on the feet. I mean, Pereira's leg kicks are one of the best in the game. And he's going to be able to throw, hooks and be able to land because he is so efficient and so good on the feet. The answer is, can Jamahal Hill answer those? The answer is the question. The answer will be, well documented after the fight, and we'll know everything. And I think he can. I think he can, hang with him on the feet because Jamahal Hill, he's never really been outstruck in the UFC, right? We've never seen him be outstruck. Now, he hasn't fought in the best strikers of all time. Johnny Walker's nothing special on the feet. Glover Teixeira was not really known as a stand-up guy, and other people like that. So when it comes to a guy like Pereira who has fought in the who's who and the best strikers in both glory and the UFC, it's going to be a disadvantage for Jamahal Hill. And I want to see if he can overcome that, because if he can overcome that and beat Pereira, beat him on the feet, beat him on the ground, just beat him regardless, this guy's going to be a scary guy in the 205 division. I'm telling you, he will be, because if you can dismantle a guy like Alex Pereira, who we've seen him beat the best in the UFC. We've seen him, right? He's done it multiple times now. And if if Jamahal Hill can beat Alex Pereira, that's a huge step up, and that's a huge win on his resume all time. And I just put him back. I'd put him back. I'd put him back in the title, and he'd have that title, and he'd probably fight Magomed and Yuri, and he'd have so many good fights. Yeah, I mean, both these guys are talented. I'm really excited for this fight. Wish it was 301 in Rio, but now UFC 300's almost complete. I don't know if he's going to announce another fight in between this, but yeah, UFC 300 is looking amazing. I've kind of talked about UFC 300 in multiple videos now, and it's going to be a great card. I'm excited. We're about 2 months away now. Yeah, I think initially my first reaction to the card wasn't too good, but now that I've had time to think about it, it's a really good card. It really is. And my main event prediction, I'm going to go with Alex Pereira. I'm going to go Alex Pereira off the first initial look at the fight. He's the healthier fighter. He's not coming off a gruesome injury. You know, he's probably the better striker. And we've seen people take down Pereira and not really do much with it. So I'm just going to go with Pereira. I think Pereira will beat him. I mean, obviously, over time, my thoughts may change. I mean, it changed over the Ilya Topuria and Volkanovski over time. So I'm just going to stick with Pereira right now. I think he'll get it done by probably knockout in the 3rd or 4th round after probably leg kicking him for 2-3 rounds and just really beating him up on the feet. He'll probably get a TKO of some sort where he drops him and they just have to call the fight. And yeah, I'm really interested for this fight. Let me know what you think about the UFC 300 in the comments down below. And like and subscribe and comment down, video ideas as well. But yeah, until next time, peace.